welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 18 100 Experts video where we'll be having a look at the transfer and captaincy trends from all of the top managers around the world. What are they doing and what can we learn from them? Guys, if you do enjoy this series, make sure you continue the support with a like. Really does help out the channel, and do subscribe if you are new around here at all. Let's see what our experts are up to. Alright, so first of all, a quick thank you to all of the 100 who submitted their data to help us out this week. Again, massive kudos to these guys. We're doing these expert videos in a really short turnaround these days because of all of the deadlines. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone who are helping all of us out, because it really does help all of us out, myself included. Really helpful to getting those transfer trends. And there's a lot of interesting things going on this week that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So first of all, out of 100 expert managers, 68% are making one transfer this week. So quite a lot of people making the one transfer. We've got 9% making two transfers as well, doing a double up on the transfers. Not too many hits being taken this week though, so a lot of our expert managers are using a transfer that they perhaps rolled last week. But what is even more interesting is that there's no one making three transfers, which does suggest to us that Game Week 18 is not a week to be going too crazy with your transfers. Just maybe one move is going to be enough to really improve your team. We're going to have a look at some options obviously later on in the video. Now, what I found really interesting when I was recording this data is that not a single one of our experts is using their free hits in Game Week 18. I've spoken about a little bit already about the idea that maybe a free hit, this is a possible opportunity for a free hit this game week, but with Mbermo injured, with obviously Haaland injured as well, actually, people have sold these players anyway, so there's not really too many people from Brentford and Man City that desperately needed to be free hitted out of teams. So actually, whereas we looked before and said this is a potential free hit week, it looks like it's not such a great week for a free hit after all. Now, obviously, if you have loads of Man City and Brentford players still in your team now, then maybe there is going to be an opportunity for some of you to free hit, but I certainly think this strategy has pretty much gone down the drain, particularly with the top managers. They're just not doing it anymore. It's just not really happening. And we have, of course, got 23% of our managers not making a transfer at all this week, so it is a potential week to roll. If you think you can roll a transfer, you're happy with your team, it is an opportunity here. This is not a huge week for transfers, but the transfers that are being made are following some good trends. So maybe there is going to be some players that are missing from your team that maybe you do need to have a look at. Of course, we've got to talk about captaincy as well. But before we do that, let's move on and see what the overall trends are. So looking at the most popular Game Week 18 transfers in the world, in overall FPL player base, we can see that Ollie Watkins, Super Ollie, is our #1 transfer target across the entirety of the FPL world. A very highly owned player already, actually, and it's interesting to see even more people now bringing him in. He is by far here the most popular transfer in globally. So yeah, we can see a heavy trend towards that. I also got Solanke, Palmer, and Pedro Porro, all over 200,000 transfers in so far this game week, and there's a bunch of other players. You know, we've got Gordon, Son, Kulusevski, we've got a few Spurs players in there, obviously, as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of transfers in for Watkins. He seems to be the main transfer target of the week among the overall player base. What I want to find out is, do our experts agree with these players, and are there any potential traps here that actually our experts don't like, but maybe someone who is, you know, maybe less experienced in FPL, they're going for certain players, but our experts disagree. First of all, let's see who our experts are agreeing with. And there's a few here. We've got Watkins, Solanke, and Pedro Porro also seeing significant interest here. So 3 of the most popular transfers in the world also being brought in by our experts. And also Leno and Trippier further down this list. Our experts like these players as well. We're going to find out how much they like these players and who is the experts' priority transfers. But I can say that there is a crossover here a little bit for some of these players from our experts and the overall player base. Now, unfortunately for these 3 players, Son, Kulusevski, and Kudus, there is not a single one of our experts that bring it in these players. Not a single sausage, which is kind of interesting. Now, Son, I kind of understand. Most of our experts do already have a player like Son in already. And if they haven't got him already, well, maybe it's a little bit too late. Maybe now is not the right time to buy him, because Everton is not the easiest fixture in the world these days. And Son will be disappearing off to the Asia Cup in 3 3 game weeks time. We only have 3 more game weeks of Son before he leaves to play international football. And interestingly, we've got the same situation with Kudus. So Kudus, very popular after a big haul in game week 17, but he will be off to the African Cup of Nations in 3 game weeks time as well. So really, these Son and Kudus picks are short term. They're really short term picks, and they're not really going to stand the test of time. So I think a lot of our experts are avoiding these players because they don't want to be bringing them in and having to sell them later. Although in fairness, a lot of our experts do already own Son and Kudus, maybe more so Son than Kudus, but still, if you haven't got them already, you may have missed the chance. You may have missed the opportunity, and you probably should have brought them in previously. If you haven't done that yet, maybe it's time to look elsewhere. And interestingly, Kulusevski is in here as well, which I think is going to be controversial. None of our experts are going for Kulusevski because I've had a lot of comments and speak about him in my YouTube comment section and live stream chat as well. A lot of people really like the look of Kulusevski, but the simple fact is that our experts have recognized that there is a slightly better and slightly cheaper option in midfield that we're going to speak about shortly that basically makes Kulusevski a second best option. And why go second best when you can go for the best? Again, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Players like Palmer and Gordon, a little bit of interest in them, but generally, if you were planning on getting Palmer or Gordon, you probably already bought them in, and a tiny bit of interest for Emi Martinez and Trent as well. But let's move on. So the most popular transfers out, we have a certain man who has been trolling FPL teams, top managers FPL teams, for a number of weeks now, and that is Darwin Nunez. A lot of top managers brought him in, and you can understand why. The underlying numbers were good. Liverpool obviously doing really well in attack, but if there's one thing Darwin knows how to do, it's troll his owners. He is a painful player to own, and I think a lot of people have felt that effect recently. And with Arsenal up next, it's a good jumping off point for Darwin. If you think that he has a poor chance of scoring in a normal game, well, against a top defence like Arsenal, the chances of a goal are even less. They're even more insignificant. So, yeah, definitely can understand why some of our experts are choosing to remove Darwin if they brought him in previously. We've got Julian Alvarez in here as well as the second most popular transfer out. Obviously, no fixture for Man City this week makes Alvarez a pretty easy sell, though I have to say, I think Alvarez is an okay longer-term pick, but if you need to try and get a full 11 of players this week, and maybe you're missing a certain player up front, then maybe Alvarez is going to be a decent transfer out for you. Another Liverpool player being transferred out is Tsimikas, joint second in there, moving him on ahead of the difficult game against Arsenal. We could see a little bit of rotation from Tsimikas moving forward. I do think his place is reasonably safe, and if you can cover him and just leave him on your bench, I think that's absolutely fine for this game week, but can see a few people moving him out. Maybe other defenders we want to be having a close look at here. After that, Areola, minutes risk at the moment. Is he fit? Is he available? Kind of. Is he going to kind of get his place back from Fabianski? It's a little bit up in the air right now. I personally think Areola is going to start, but if Areola is your only starting goalkeeper right now and you've seen another goalkeeper you like, definitely understand why you might want to remove him, regardless of whether he gets back into the West Ham team or not. And after that, it's really a jumble of players, a mishmash of all kinds of different players that maybe people have who they aren't happy with right now. Some due to injury, some due to poor fixtures, some due to the fact that they just haven't been playing very much football recently. So you can understand why some of these other random players, that I'm sure you guys have 1 or 2 random players in your team that you might want to be thinking about removing this week. In terms of transfers in, we do have a standout candidate for transfers this week. And I think this is particularly interesting considering a lot of our experts already had Watkins anyway. And yet, just like in the overall transfer trends, despite Watkins already having a high ownership, he is still the most popular transfer in, which maybe suggests to us that if you are one of the people who don't have Watkins for whatever reason, this is your chance, this is your opportunity to catch up with the rest of the FPL player base who already have Watkins and get him into your team, because we've got a fantastic home game against Sheffield United. We know what Aston Villa are like at home, and we know that Sheffield United aren't exactly the strongest team in the league, are they? So Watkins definitely a fabulous, fabulous player to pick up for this game week if you didn't have him already. Very, very strong trends here. 21 of our 77 transfer making FPL experts are bringing him in. We have got some other players with heavy transfer trends, though. First of all, Pedro Porro, by far the #1 defensive choice. We've seen the last couple of game weeks, Pedro Porro has been the popular defender brought in by experts. Again, if you haven't managed to get Pedro Porro into your team, now's the time to catch up with the emerging expert template and get Porro into your team. He's got some pretty decent fixtures. He's got great attacking threat, which we very much know. He's on set pieces whilst Maddison is still injured, and he looks great from open play as well. So I think Porro is really one of the top defenders to bring in right now. Maybe alongside Trippier and Trent, who are a lot more expensive, but Porro does the job at a nice cheaper price at 5.5 million. Speaking of defenders, let's talk about Trippier next. Another big option for this game week. A game against Luton Town is going to be a pretty decent one for Newcastle defenders. Newcastle finally getting all of their players back as well. We've seen Burn and Botman now get minutes back in the Premier League since their lengthy spells out with injury. So with those players back, this is really going to boost the chances of Newcastle getting clean sheets. And why not pick the best defender in their team who has the best opportunities to get more FPL points from set pieces, from assists, from creativity, from bonus points, from everything. Taking the free kicks, maybe he'll bang one of them in sooner rather than later. Lots of opportunities to get points via Trippier if you can afford to do that. And with so many people lacking Erling Haaland in their team, money is not really an issue right now. So if you fancy reinvesting that money into a Trippier, hey, why not? Richarlison is in here as well. He is the standout midfielder to buy this game week. There's not really any other midfielders in FPL that our experts are heavily targeting this week. Richarlison now playing as a central striker, despite being listed as a midfielder in FPL. He is going to be playing as that central striker for like a decent period of time, you would imagine, particularly with the Asia Cup coming off, and Son, he's going to be disappearing in 3 game weeks. So Richarlison with his good form, goals recently as well, finally getting into what I guess Tottenham fans kind of hoped he would be. He's finally getting to those levels, isn't he? And outside of that, we've got a couple others. We've got Solanke in there. A few people bringing him in. Dubravka as a goalkeeper. Leno was a goalkeeper there. And the final interesting point here is Konsa and Pau Torres. 4 transfers in for each of them. You can kind of combine them in many ways and say, actually, 8 of our experts are looking to bring in an Aston Villa defender right now. And a lot of them have said, a lot of people going for Pau Torres are hoping Pau Torres will be available for this game week. But if he's not, they'll just go Konsa instead. So really, if Pau Torres is available, maybe you go for him. If not, Konsa is there as an option as well. A little tiny bit cheaper there as well. But certainly, an Aston Villa defender against Sheffield United is really going to give you a good chance of a clean sheet, as well as maybe a little bit of attacking threat from those set pieces as well, where Sheffield United have struggled a bit this season. So really, what we are seeing here is it goes Watkins as the #1 transfer target, Pedro Porro as the second most. After that, it's a case of bringing in an Aston Villa defender, whether that's Konsa or Pau Torres, whichever one you fancy, bringing them in and enjoy some clean sheet points against Sheffield United. I mean, that's the plan anyway. That's the hope, I guess. So yeah, that's the most popular transfer trends. Let's make some suggestions for some transfers for you guys based on what we've seen here. So first of all, very simple, Darwin out, Watkins in. This is the most common transfer among our experts this week. If you do have Darwin in your team and you have the money to move him to a Watkins, I think it is a pretty simple choice. If you don't have Watkins already, it really is. So maybe you can just go for that. If you have Julian Alvarez, you can't really cover him for this week. Again, another player you could potentially move to Watkins. These will be the popular ways to get to him. And yeah, there was a couple of people actually selling Haaland for Watkins as well, which I think is interesting. But yeah, it's basically a case of if you don't have Watkins, get him in, sell a forward that maybe you're not 100% convinced by. And there's reasons to not be convinced by Darwin because of the fixture and the poor form, and Alvarez because of the lack of fixtures. Maybe you can say the same about Erling Haaland as well. Also put on here a midfielder to Richarlison. There wasn't really any strong trends of what midfielders were being sold this week, so there is not a new player in the Premier League called mid, although if there was, I guess he'd probably be quite mid. But a lot of people are bringing in Richarlison. It's kind of up to you. If you have a midfielder in your squad right now you're not really too happy with, maybe Martinelli or someone like that, or I'm not sure. It really could be anyone. It really could be anyone. If there's a midfielder you're not happy with, Richarlison is the replacement for you. For defenders, if you've got a Simicast or if you've got Fabian Schär, maybe that is going to be the route to get yourself a Pedro Porro. Obviously with Schär's injury and Simicast with the Arsenal fixture. If you don't want Simicast long-term in your team, yeah, good switch to Pedro Porro. Probably one of the best defensive assets in the game right now. When you look at value for money, Porro probably is the best FPL defender right now. So yeah, maybe see what you guys think about that one. But yeah, certainly a pretty easy transfer. Doesn't cost you too much money to do that. Go for it. Pretty much go for it. A lot of people also worried about Areola in his minutes, and also West Ham defensively haven't been amazing. Maybe Areola straight to Dubravka could work for you as well if you're looking for a new goalkeeper, though. A little shout out to Leno as well, who I do think is an option in goal, but Dubravka is your cheap option, isn't he? And over the next 2 game weeks, we're probably expecting clean sheets for Newcastle when they play against Luton and then Nottingham Forest, who are now, by the way, managerless. And finally, a look at the captaincy stats, and we've got a standout. We've got a standout. We've got a trend. You know, I went into this video thinking, when I was doing like the research and gathering the data and putting it all together, I was thinking, are we going to have a strong trend this week? And I thought, okay, I think Watkins will be the most popular. I see Watkins at around 60%. Well, no, I was very wrong. 81%. So that is a really strong trend, and it does suggest to us that, you know, a lot of people, at least who have Watkins, are going to be captaining him. And the few people who don't have Watkins, they're pretty much the only people who won't be captaining him this week, which is quite crazy. So buy Watkins and captain him is the general advice from our experts this week, so it would seem. So yeah, home game against Sheffield United, he's got the best fixture. Aston Villa have the best chance of scoring goals and getting the best results from this game week. We've got no Man City, we've got Liverpool and Arsenal playing against each other. Newcastle play against Luton, but it's difficult to select a captain from those players at this moment, isn't it? So yeah, I think Watkins is your obvious answer. We have got 10% on Son. You can understand why. Son has that high ceiling in an FPL asset, doesn't he? He's a player on penalties, and he's a player who has gone crazy with these 20-pointers, 15, 20-pointers. He seems to just get them, you know, all the time. Well, not all the time. Sometimes he also gets 2-pointers, but a lot of the time, Son is more than capable of getting those big hauls. And he has got a home game against Everton, which historically would have been a nice one, but I think right now, if Son was playing a slightly easier fixture, then he would be in better competition for captaincy with Watkins, but this week's just sadly not the case. Everton are good recently, they will sit deep, they will defend deep, and Son may not be totally suited to this fixture. So you can understand why he's sitting around 10%. There is some reason to go for him, but certainly not a super strong argument to go for him. And of course, a lot of people defaulting to Salah. If you can't captain Haaland, I mean, this is the first game week we've had this season that I can remember that we've seen no one going for Haaland. It just doesn't seem to happen. People will captain Haaland no matter what. Similar situation with Salah, even though he has got a really tough fixture against a strong Arsenal defence. People still captain him because he's the king of FPL and the best players will score against anyone. So I don't love the Salah captaincy shout, but I understand why we've got 6% on him. And finally, guys, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that these numbers don't add up to 100% because we've got 3 1%ers this game week. These are real out there picks. I know they're not really interesting in terms of who we would pick as FPL captains maybe, but I always find it fun to see what the differential captains some of our top managers are going for. And one of them is really strange. I'll start off with that one. Leon Bailey. Yeah, don't really know why, but someone's captaining Leon Bailey, assuming he's fit. I guess it's a game against Sheffield United. If you don't have Ollie Watkins, midfielders score more FPL points than forwards, technically. So, yeah, I kind of get it in a way, but it just seems too out there for me. We've got Alexander Isak, who we don't even know if he's going to be fit and available for this Luton Town game, but I guess captain a striker against Luton Town isn't exactly the worst strategy in the world, is it? So kind of get it, but I would personally be waiting for more information before backing that captaincy pick. And finally, Cole Palmer, who's playing against Wolves. I don't think this is an amazing fixture for Chelsea necessarily, but I mean, Cole Palmer did really well last game week. He's been super consistent. I mean, I think I saw on Twitter today that since Palmer's debut, he's got the same amount of assists and goals as Erling Haaland. And when you consider that Palmer, yeah, he's obviously a player who gets more points for assists, for goals, and a point for a clean sheet as well, maybe actually means Palmer is kind of matching Haaland in many ways at the moment. So, yeah, interesting one, isn't it? Is he a captain option? I don't know. I think the low price tag on Palmer puts me off captaining him, but at the same time, as an outside shout, I don't mind it. But really, let's be honest, it's time to captain Ollie Watkins. And if you're worried about who to pick, the experts have spoken. Buy Watkins and captain him. that's going to be the end of today's video, guys. If you did enjoy it, make sure you do drop a like. It does help out the channel a lot. Do subscribe if you're new around here. And guys, don't forget to check out yesterday's stream. We did a stream version of the tier list video, which was super fun to do with you guys. A lot of people got involved, and yeah, I think it made for actually a really good stream in the end. We had some laughs and some jokes around there as well, and picked up talking about some really interesting topics. So if that's your thing, you fancy a little bit of long form in your life, check out yesterday's stream replay, because I think it is a good one. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Once again, I'll be back tomorrow with a team selection video, but until then, I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.